Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation 24 channel, I hope. Everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Gold Rush fans bashed Fred for treatment of Clayton's. Gold Rush fans have complained about a lot this season on the show, but Fred Lewis mostly tops the list. There are also fans that have complained about the Clayton brothers, for different reasons. However, when fans saw how Fred treated the brothers in the last episode, they were completely on the brothers' side. Here is what Fred did to the Claytons, and why fans are mad. Fred Lewis hypocritical on Gold Rush toward Claytons. Fred Lewis has done a lot this season to anger Gold Rush fans. From the start, it seemed fans saw Fred as a joke. In every episode when he appeared, the narrator mentioned Fred was a veteran. It soon became a drinking game for fans to take a shot every time someone mentioned it. Fred then made it worse by bringing it up all the time. When he lashed out at fans for complaining, it made it worse. Instead of seeing viewers hit over the head with it over and over, he acted like viewers were insulting veterans. However, it was just about Fred and how people saw him. Things were worse as the season wore on, and Fred made some of the worst decisions in Gold Rush history. It looked like he was completely clueless or he was sabotaging his own efforts at success. However, despite everything Fred did wrong, he still seems to act like he is a gold mining expert and talks down to people all the time. This week, he aimed his arrogance at the Clayton brothers. What made it worse was that fans saw him as hypocritical in the situation. The Clayton brothers needed help when their equipment broke down. They went to Fred for help, which made sense because Fred has asked for help more than once this season as well, for the same reason. However, Fred and his crew dismissed the Clayton brothers. It was also made worse when Fred Stepson commented that the Clayton brothers aren't cursed and said that they just break things. This is especially interesting since Fred pulled his own son off some equipment a few weeks back since he was accused of breaking things. Fans rip into Fred Lewis for his actions. Gold Rush fans were not taking this disrespect from Fred Lewis. On Reddit, everyone began ripping into Lewis in the thread for the new episode. The Claytons have had bad luck too, but they actually have some knowledge and experience to back up them being there in the first place, one fan argued. You take Buzz out of the Lewis crew, and you've basically got a bunch of kids playing in a sandbox for the first time. Another pointed out that the Clayton brothers had a breakdown, and Fred wouldn't loan them anything. However, when Fred's crew broke things, he had excuses every time. Another said that Fred's crew was all talking bad about the Claytons, but Fred and his cohorts have little room to talk. The sun hung low over the Alaskan horizon, casting a golden hue across the rugged landscape. The air was thick with anticipation, as it always was at the start of another day of hard digging and even harder decisions. In the world of Gold Rush, fortunes could change with a single strike of the shovel or the roar of a sluice. But today, the stakes felt higher and the tension thicker than the layers of ancient earth they were tearing through. All eyes were on Fred Lewis, the former Green Beret turned gold miner, a man with a mission and a vision, but also with a growing cloud of controversy hanging over him. Fred had always been a polarizing figure in the gold mining community. His military background had instilled in him a fierce determination and a strict code of discipline. But what worked on the battlefield didn't always translate well to the gold fields. His leadership style was often seen as harsh, even tyrannical at times, and his team had felt the brunt of it more than once. Yet despite the grumblings and the setbacks, Fred had managed to carve out a place for himself in the cutthroat world of gold mining. But recently, the storm clouds over Fred's operation had darkened considerably, and it wasn't just because of the unpredictable Alaskan weather. The Clayton brothers, Brandon and Brady, had become the center of a brewing controversy that had fans of the show buzzing with outrage. The Claytons were newcomers, relatively speaking, but they had quickly proven their worth. They were hard workers, driven by the same hunger for gold that fueled everyone in the game, but their time under Fred's command had been anything but smooth. From the outset, there had been friction between Fred and the Claytons. The brothers were used to working at their own pace, applying their skills and experience as they saw fit. But Fred, ever the soldier, had little patience for what he perceived as a lack of discipline. He pushed the brothers hard, harder than perhaps anyone else on his crew. And when they failed to meet his exacting standards, his criticism was swift and unforgiving. To the viewers at home, it soon became clear that this wasn't just a case of tough love. Fred's treatment of the Claytons seemed to go beyond the usual rough and tumble dynamics of a mining crew. There was a harshness to his words, a dismissiveness that felt unwarranted. The brothers, for their part, took the criticism in stride, at least on camera. They kept their heads down and continued to work, determined to prove themselves despite the mounting pressure. But the fans saw what was happening, and they didn't like it. Social media lit up with comments as fans voiced their frustration and anger over Fred's treatment of the Claytons. "Fred's got no right to treat them like that," one fan tweeted. "They're doing their best, and he's just tearing them down." Others echoed the sentiment, with some even calling for the Claytons to strike out on their own and leave Fred behind. "They don't need that kind of negativity. They're better off without him," another comment read. As the episodes rolled on, the tension between Fred and the Claytons only grew. The brothers started making mistakes, small ones at first, but they began to add up. And each time, Fred was there, ready with a scathing remark or a pointed criticism. To the viewers, it seemed like a vicious cycle. The more Fred pushed, the more the Claytons faltered. And the more they faltered, the harder Fred came down on them. But the real breaking point came during one particularly grueling day on the claim. The crew had been working nonstop, pushing to hit a particularly rich pay streak that Fred was convinced lay just a few feet below the surface. The pressure was immense, and tempers were frayed. The Claytons, exhausted and frustrated, made a critical mistake, one that could have cost them the entire day's work. Fred's reaction was swift and brutal. He unleashed a torrent of anger at the brothers, blaming them not just for the mistake, but for every setback the operation had faced in recent weeks. The outburst was shocking in its intensity, and it left the Claytons visibly shaken. But it wasn't just the brothers who were affected. The rest of the crew looked on in stunned silence, their morale plummeting as Fred's words echoed across the claim. It was a turning point, not just for the operation, but for the show itself. Fans watched in disbelief as Fred tore into the Claytons, and the backlash was immediate. Social media exploded with criticism. Fans accused Fred of bullying, of being unfair, and of driving a wedge between the team. "Fred's out of control," one viewer posted. "He's going to lose his crew if he keeps this up." Others called for the Claytons to be given more respect, noting that they had proven themselves time and again despite the impossible standards set by Fred. The Claytons deserve better than this. They've earned their place. The controversy didn't go unnoticed by the producers of the show. They were well aware of the drama that made Gold Rush must-watch television, but they also knew that there was a fine line between compelling conflict and outright cruelty. The tension within Fred's operation became a focal point of the season, with each new episode adding fuel to the fire. Fans tuned in not just to see if the crew would strike gold, but to see if the Claytons would finally stand up to Fred, or if Fred himself would recognize the damage he was doing. In the end, the situation reached a boiling point that even the most seasoned Gold Rush viewers didn't see coming. The Claytons, pushed to their limit, finally confronted Fred. The confrontation was raw and emotional, with years of frustration and anger spilling over. Fred, to his credit, didn't back down, but he also didn't dismiss their concerns outright. It was a tense, dramatic moment that left fans on the edge of their seats. But the real resolution came not from a heated argument, but from a moment of quiet reflection. Fred, after taking some time away from the claim, seemed to come to a realization. His military background had taught him the importance of discipline and toughness, but it had also taught him the value of teamwork and respect. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Fred acknowledged that he had been too hard on the Claytons, that he had let his frustrations get the better of him. The apology wasn't grand or over the top, but it was sincere, and for the Claytons, it was enough. The brothers accepted Fred's words, and in that moment, a new understanding was forged. The road ahead would still be tough. There was gold to find, after all. But there was a renewed sense of camaraderie among the crew. For the fans, the drama had been worth every minute. They had seen the highs and lows, the conflict and the resolution, and in the end, they were reminded of what made Gold Rush so compelling. It wasn't just about the gold in the ground, but about the people digging for it.